Hey everybody, Eliza Ben Shalom. So happy to be here with you with my favorite buddy, Sarah
Aww,
Bowman. Hi,
hey.
Sarah. How you
Hi.
doing?
I am doing pretty awesome. How are you?
Awesome. Good, good. What's our topic today?
We are going to talk about closure. So in
Ooh,
a recent episode, we talked all about heartbreak. We talked about being heartbroken. We talked about being the heartbreaker. We talked about what to do post breakup, but we didn't touch on closure at all.
how
So
you get closure, what you do to get
yes,
closure.
yes, yes,
Heavy topic.
yeah,
Okay. All right, let me break it down a few different ways.
you do that.
Number one, there are those people. They're like, I got to talk to the person. I just got to talk to them. I got to talk to them. I can't do anything but talk to them. If I don't talk to them, it's not going to work. I got to talk to them. I got to talk to them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So for those people, if you can get one of those meetings in person, phone, something, then you should do it because it's clearly something that's very important to you. It's driving you. You're like rushing towards it and you need it. Then I would try to do it. However, word of caution, those conversations don't usually go well. It doesn't usually make you happy. You get closure and it's like, okay, I talked to them and I like poured my heart out and I told them either I love you and I want you back. I hate you and I can't believe you did this to me. What's wrong with you and why would this happen? What's wrong with me? It doesn't usually go so well. Or you ask lots of questions. Well, why?
Right.
Why? And it hurts. It really hurts. It hurts you. It hurts them. It hurts everybody in the process. So
And then
even if it's something you really want, yeah, I just
the
don't
problem
recommend
with
it.
why is that then there's always going to be a
Then you
response
want
to
to,
every
yeah,
answer.
you want to refute
Yeah.
why they said that this couldn't work. And the truth is, there is never one why.
Right.
Never. There's not one why this doesn't work. Right? People are like, oh, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. What does that mean? That means there were so many things before this that piled up that this isn't the only thing. And if you fix this, it doesn't fix the fact that I don't want to be with you and that this doesn't work for me. And other times, I'm never going to tell you the answer. You could ask me forever. I'm either going to lie to you, not because I want to lie to you, but because I can't tell you the truth because it hurts too much for me, or because I don't know the truth, because something's bothering me and I can't figure it out, but I just decided I'm done. There's so much that goes into it. So if you're that kind of person that needs that in-person closure, you need to say something, you need to get it off your chest, you need to do it. If you could get that because it's what you want, you could try to go for it. It doesn't usually make people happier or feel better. So it's not my primary method. Sarah?
I probably should have started with this, but could you just give a brief explanation on what is closure when we're talking about a breakup or the end of a relationship? And is it important? Why is it important? What role does it play? And then let's get back to what you were saying.
Okay. So first of all, yes, closure is important. What type of closure? How do we do closure? Totally a different topic. But is closure important? Closure is important. Why? Because my heart and soul were open to another human being, and now that's over, and I'm like bleeding out on the table, right? If you were a doctor, you'd be like holding it in so that like the blood's not oozing everywhere, because I don't have closure. So if you think about it in a medical term like that, right? When somebody's bleeding out, what do you need to do? They need closure. They need that to close up. They need that to scab over. They need that to heal. They might need it to be stitched up, right? It depends on how deep that wound is. But they can't just run back into the world because they won't be functioning, because they never got closure, because it never closed. It would be like walking around with an open wound and an open sore that would be vulnerable to infection or irritation or discomfort or pain that doesn't go away, and that usually gets worse over time, right? If we don't take care of closure, what happens? Because it's not closed, it's open. What happens over time? It tears, it gets bigger, it gets worse. And then the closure is a much bigger operation. Sorry for all the doctor references, but it's just what it is.
I love that.
But it totally makes sense.
I think you just summed that up so beautifully. And if I understand you correctly, Aliza, you're saying that the kind of closure that a person needs is based on A, the kind of wound that is there, meaning how deep
Right.
and how
Yes.
long and how
Yes.
intense the relationship was,
Yes.
and the person themselves, their personality. Some people heal really quickly physically,
Correct.
and some people
Correct.
need more support in multiple ways. Oh, wow, that makes so much sense.
Right. And if you think of healing, sorry to interrupt, but if you think of healing, right, you said some people heal more quickly, or some people do it on their own, right?
Right.
Like, oh, they grab a little butterfly bandage, they put it over top, they put a little ointment on, they keep it out of the sun, they protect it, whatever, like, we're good. And other people are like, 911 emergency, I'm calling the ambulance, get me out of here. By the way, in Israel, it's not 911, it's something else, and I don't know what it is. I have to look it up again.
I don't know what it is.
No, it's either 101 or it's something. It's something like that. And but it's an emergency, and they need, like you said, support. They need assistance, they need guidance, they need help, they need other people, all hands on deck, to help them to have that closure, because they can't do it on their own, because it's too big or deep of a wound.
So two things. First of all, I love closure just took on a new meaning for me when you use the reference of a wound, because it's literally closing
It's a wound.
That
The heart. Wow. Listen, the heart, when you meet somebody, the heart opens. Yes. And it opens and it opens. Yes. And then it envelops the person. And then it wraps and twists and ties itself around that person like a big hug. Mm-hmm. And so it's a heart with a hug that's holding on to something. And then sometimes that person slips away, falls away, pulls away, runs away. And then all of a sudden that heart that was holding, that was hugging, is like in shock. Like,
hold on, Aliza, everyone who's listening to this episode on a podcast and not watching on YouTube has no idea what you're doing right now. Just a whole lot of sounds. Aliza was mimicking someone hugging.
You have to go find us on YouTube. So it's really difficult, and some people need more support. So the question is, how do we get closure, right? Aliza's saying don't go to that person.
Hold on. Before we get there, I'm just processing. So let's just pretend I'm the listener. I'm going to just process a few things out loud, which I am. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Because again, closure is not my area of expertise. So two things that go hand in hand, but someone who really needs time to get over a breakup and needs a lot of support, and someone that I personally would call being dramatic, they're not being dramatic. They're addressing it and getting the kind of healing, I don't know why I put that in quotes, because it's literal healing that they need. And as someone who is I would imagine that someone who is comfortable with people and trusting of people and easily opens their heart probably has an easier time with closure, kind of like someone who's just going to put on the butterfly bandage by themselves versus someone who really has layers and layers and layers that need to peel away in order for them to open their heart. No? Is the wound not deeper then? Or is it not necessarily?
I'm really thinking about this, because if somebody easily opens their heart, it doesn't mean it's easy to close it. It means they're open. They're easy to open. It doesn't mean that I'm good at separating and closing. So okay. I don't think those things go hand. I don't think that's a given. Okay. They don't go hand in hand.
Clarifying that. All right, now let's get into
okay. So closure. So how do you get closure if I'm saying the ideal way could be, but might not be to go directly to that person, right? There might be reasons or times when you can, when the relationship's not so done, when it's just starting to be done, when we're still figuring it out. But what happens if you're like done and you don't feel the closure and now you want to go back to it? So first of all, we don't know where the other person's holding. Maybe they've already had closure. Maybe you going back to them is reopening a wound for them that they worked hard to close also. possibility A, right? But when you're in pain, you don't care about somebody else's pain. You only care about your pain. Like, I don't care that I'm opening your pain.
Are you saying
I got
there's
my
a
pain.
time limit on closure in terms
I'm
of bringing
saying
the other person into the picture?
potentially,
Okay.
yes, yes. What if the person that you were with is now in a new relationship,
Right?
and you never got closure, and you want closure? Is that an appropriate time to go to them? So, without knowing anybody's personal situation, generically speaking, no, it's not appropriate. So you need to figure out how to get closure when you're not going to the source for that.
Okay, let's say you are going to the source, and
okay,
is there ever a time that it would be appropriate not to get closure, not to try to get closure right away, but to wait? Like kind of like not ripping the Band-Aid off, but waiting until, you go in the shower and it's wet already, and then you can slowly peel it off. You know what I'm saying?
Analogy.
Like give a little healing time and then have that closure conversation.
Yes, if both sides are too raw and too heated, and you cannot have a final closure conversation, and it's like this has to wait, then you could try going back at a later time. But we really need permission from both sides. We need both sides to buy into this. And the thing that I wanted to bring up was, we were talking about going to the source for closure, and we were assuming that we were talking about going to the other person, that is the source for closure. I want to flip it. They are not the source for your closure. You are. Yeah. So if they are not the source for your closure, you need closure. You don't need to talk to them to have closure. You need to talk to you. You need to figure out what went wrong, what was going on, even if you don't know what happened with them.
Right.
What happened with you? The answers that you couldn't get from them, you might never get from them.
Right.
What do you need? What's going on? Do you need love? Do you need friendship? Do you need a hug? Do you need a massage? Do you need a vacation? Do you need to stop dating? Do you need to immediately date somebody else because you just need to transition quickly, and transition might be healthy for you? Very rare cases, it's healthy to actually transition quickly. Most of the time, it's very unhealthy to transition quickly. So when we're thinking and we're talking about closure, the big idea, the inspiration is, stop looking for outside sources for closure. Stop looking for answers from the person that you probably can't get answers from, and start looking within. What do I need to heal? Right? Oh, I need answers. Okay, but that's not possible. What else do you need to heal? What do you need? Do you need to forgive yourself? No, it's not.
Right.
It doesn't do it. Look, sometimes in different circumstances, I'm not going to say it never happens. You can get some closure when somebody says, look, I just don't like you. I tried it. I was forcing myself the whole time, and I just don't like you. And you're like, wow, it's never going to work. Okay, thanks for the closure, right? But ouch, if that's the answer you're going to get anyway, I don't want that answer. Let me just make up a better story in my head and go about my day and get different kind of closure, right? Do we need that? So again, some people need just the bold, hard truth. It is what it is, but not everybody knows the answer. So ask yourself the real hard questions. What can I do for myself to take a step towards healing? What can I do to create a space where I don't feel negative about this all the time, or upset, or hurt, or frustrated? What can I do to shift my head, my heart, my everything into a happy, a healthy, a more whole, complete space? And start to ask more questions than that, and figure out what you need. You need something, and it cannot always be that if I get an answer from them, I'll be fine. It's not true. Right. Try it. Try getting your answer. Guess how satisfied you're going to feel? Not at all. You know why? Because sometimes you get an answer, and then you have another question, and then you need more clarification. And guess what you get? A brick wall. You get nothing. You get the hand. Nobody wants to talk to you, and they're like, I'm done. You asked your question, you got your answer, we're done. This conversation's over. And you're like, as bad as I felt before this, now I feel worse. I didn't even I wanted closure, and you didn't even give me what I wanted. And by the way, when I'm coaching my clients and we talk about a breakup, if I'm talking about the one who's being the heartbreaker, I tell them, you might need to give this other person time to figure it out. They might need closure time, and that you might need to answer questions and you might need to do things that are difficult for you. And if you actually care about them, then you should try to do that as much as possible. It'll help them to get through it. And if you can't do it, then do the best you can and move on and figure it out. So I coach people to try to afford you, the one who has had your heart broken, the opportunity to get answers to your questions, but it's just not always possible. And sometimes the questions that we're asking don't have answers, or they don't have good answers, or they don't have nice answers. So it's very difficult. So my answer to closure is take a look in the mirror. Take a look at yourself and where you're broken and where you're hurting and where you're in pain, and figure out how to piece yourself back together in a new, beautiful way, just like the Japanese art of, the pottery.
Kintsugi?
Yeah.
What it's called.
Right. And piece yourself back together with gold. Stitch yourself up with golden stitches. Make it amazing so that you can heal. And now you can really go find your person. And a lot of times when people want closure, they don't actually want closure. They just want you back. They just want you to make a new decision. And that, my friend, is not closure. That's winning them back. And that's a different podcast.
Aliza, I feel like you can always see when my brain is processing, and I've been so quiet because I'm thinking of a specific scenario that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. And then I'm just going to bring up the question that you're going to answer after that, so I don't forget. I want to know how closure comes into play for the heartbreaker, for the person who had to make that decision, or for the person who made the decision, this is not a relationship that's right for me. In a case where it wasn't mutual, right? They still experience that relationship to whatever degree. What does closure look like for them? Hold on, don't answer that yet. So I'm thinking about a specific scenario where there was a friendship with someone that I really liked, really wanted to date. I think, thinking back to last week's episode, we had a soul connection. I do believe that we have a soul connection, but not necessarily a healthy relationship. And so we kind of got to the point where we said, no more communication. This is not going to go anywhere. But in my heart of hearts, I wanted him to want to date me as well, even if I knew that it probably wasn't going to be ideal. And so, do I think I ever got closure? No. I sort of just closed the door. And when he got engaged, because he got engaged before me, he actually got engaged. I found out he got engaged the same day that I met my husband. That's a different story. But when I found out that he got engaged, I was so happy for him. And at the same time, there was that definitive loss of, this is over. And for me, that's when I got closure. And it was nothing that I could have done. And it was nothing that he actively did towards me.
It was a moment of clarity, which was, you are not my person.
Right.
And
so
now I have to move on.
How does that idea of closure fit into, again, not having the closure in the way that we think of it wasn't holding me back, right? I wasn't waiting out for him. Holding out for him. I was like, he was
still an option. He was still like,
but he
as
wasn't
long as you're
really
not married and I'm not married and I like you, there's a
in
maybe.
the back of my head, sure, but not in practice.
Right.
And for me, there really wasn't any way to get closure other than just closing that door.
Move on.
Is that closure?
Not remaining friends is closure. Yeah, moving on.
But it wasn't really for me. That moment of closure was that moment of hearing he got engaged. Does that make sense? Even if it's not something that I did?
Yes, because that was a definitive moment of, this can't work. Right. You have a different intended. So this is over. So and a lot of people hold out hope that a friend or a relationship or one of those things where we don't exactly know what the term is, but there's something going on here between us and nobody's talking about it. Situationship. I love it. Right. But then somebody moves on and you're like, oh, you're not my soulmate. Kind of thought it. I mean, you were my backup plan because I really liked you, or you were, I wish I could make it work plan, but I know it's probably not going to work plan. So I think it gets a little bit it gets a little bit difficult when the heart wants what the heart wants and the other person's still available. And if they're still available, well, they're still available. There is still a possibility until
So
that
can
door closes.
someone really get full closure, or is closure, wait for it,
Some people can. Some people can get closure because they make sense of it in their mind, or because their heart closes, because their heart is no longer open to this person. They're like, nah, I'm good. I'm done. I'm okay. It wasn't the right thing. It doesn't make sense. It's not good for them. It's not good for me, even if I want it, or even if I don't, or they didn't want it, or whatever their reasoning, they're talking to their head and to their heart, and their understanding of the situation is. Once you can come up with an understanding, I think it makes you feel better and it brings you closer to closure. So I think that you had a partial closure. Right. Your partial closure was, wow, not for me, not going to work. Oh, but maybe there'll be hope. But there really was a moment of closure that happened. But then there was a solidified closure, which was, well, look at that. Okay. My little ounce of hope just went out the door. Now, really, we have reached full closure. So maybe you were at 93% closure with like a 7% hope that something could be different. And then that reality set in. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of where we're at. And I think with closure, I think, again, the heart and the mind, they want different things. They understand different things. And I think it's really difficult. Now, did we get back to the talking about the heartbreaker and what they should be doing? Okay, so we're gonna do that. So
it's the same process, no? Well, it's not asking questions, but there's still
here's what happened. No, I want to explain this. Yeah. No, I want to explain this. Okay, I'm the heartbreaker. I'm breaking up with you. Okay. What happened?
Lisa, you can't break up with me. We're so
I love you, Sarah.
You said life.
I am a lifer. Okay, so if I am being the heartbreaker, usually the heartbreaker has a couple different scenarios. So the heartbreaker could be the person that their heart, I'm in a relationship with you, my head, my heart, something clicked, closed. I had that happen once to me, young, like in college, and it wasn't like I was in love, but I was in a relationship, and I was like, oh, this isn't for me. Total, complete clarity, but I never had that discussion. There was never like a falling out. We didn't actually have a problem. Everything was fine. And then I just announced, like,
we're breaking up.
So this isn't gonna work. And I brought over the box of tissues.
No.
And it was really difficult, but I literally had complete closure without having any discussion, or there was no go down the slide and we like go down it together, the emotional roller coaster of like the yay and the boo. There was nothing. It just ended in my head and we were done. And then I had to break the news and I had to figure out how to go through that. Okay. That's one type of closure for the person that is the heartbreaker. If you break up and you're like, oh my gosh, this relationship is wrong for me, but I like you or I love you, but I can't do this because this is wrong for me. That's a conscious closure where I know that this needs to happen, but I'm not healed from it. Doesn't mean I'm healed just because I did it, which usually means that there is room for that other person to sneak back into your life. And if I were coaching the other side and they're like, I still want them, I would say, well, then you should go for it because there's a chance that they might be okay and want you back. They might have made a conscious decision, but if they didn't close their heart, there is still time for you to get inside. Okay. So now you have to see, like, depends on which side of the relationship I'm coaching, but I would give different people different advice based on their scenario and what the outcome is that they want. And I would help them try to get what they want. So if you really want closure and you're the heartbreaker, then don't just make it conscious, but you have to separate yourself. This is why men and women can't be friends. You have to walk away, like delete the phone number, no texting, no talking, no visiting friends together, like done, we're done. It's over. There's a separation. This is not, that's it. Otherwise you have to be open to the possibility that this other person might call me and get coaching and get back into your life. And I can tell them how.
Hold on. So let's talk about the heartbreaker for a second. which we are.
We're
I know. We're talking.
exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, I know. What? And maybe you just answered this, but what if they're second guessing their decision? Right?
Right. Okay. So now I know definitively not my person. I know consciously not my person. But now, what if I half-heartedly think I should do this and I rush to do it, but I'm not really sure if I mean it, but I'm just doing it anyway because I should get it off my, like I should just get it off my chest and just make it happen. Yeah. So that also happens. And the likelihood of the other person convincing you not to break up with them is like through the roof high. It's like 95% that the other person could probably convince you if you're half-hearted about it. So if you're like, I don't know, is it my person? I just forget it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. It's just too confusing and it hurts my brain. It hurts my heart. It's bothering me. I can't focus at work. And like, that's it. I just have to break up because I just can't make sense of it. Bad reason. Don't break up. When in doubt, go out. Or date them till you hate them. You need to get clarity, and breaking up with them is not clarity. It's just an action in this world that was not produced through clarity. So if you have breakup status of breakup and you do not have clarity, you have a problem, because they will either come back into your life immediately, just as quickly as you tried to throw them out, they come back in, or in 2 years, or in 5 years, or in 10 years. So you know what? Go through it, suck it up and deal, figure it out, but be clear. You don't have to have your heart over it, but you have to have your head on board. We have to have some consciousness of why we're doing this, and not just because I'm feeling uncomfortable for some reason.
So breakup without clarity, not good. Clarity, which leads to breakup, we're okay with.
Correct.
We also have the concept of sometimes it's the right person, just not the right time. So what if someone breaks up, even if it's mutual, whether it's mutual or not, regardless, and there's full closure from that relationship? What does that mean if it comes up again at some point down the road? Was it not full closure, or was full closure and it's a new start?
Totally could have been full closure, and totally could be a new start. It could be that it never ended. It could be that there really wasn't closure, and then it's just a continuation. You know, like when you get a cold and you're like, I'm over it, I'm fine. And like 2 days later, when you're feeling better, you start to feel sick again. And you're like, I'm getting another cold, but you're not really getting another cold. You weren't really over the first. So sometimes it's like that. And sometimes, no, there really is closure, and it wasn't the right person and it wasn't the right time. And therefore we're going to revisit this and also I'm a new person now. So however many days, weeks, months, or years later, I'm somebody new.
Right.
There's a lot.
I just have to say, this conversation, I'm listening and I'm mostly focused, but I'm like writing down my soulmate questions that are coming up as we're having this conversation. It's just bringing up more soulmate questions.
Amazing. And people that you break up with, if they come back into your life, we call them mystery in your history. And your mystery in your history is something that you need to look into, because when you've had some sort of a connection, a soul connection, a relationship connection, then it's just likely that it's still there. And it's like on the gas stove, you know, like there's a pilot light and it just always stays there. And then like you could turn it on and whoop, we could get a really big fire. You could turn it down, but like it never goes out unless the power goes out, right? But your power never goes out. When you have somebody from your past, to me, it's very hard, unless somebody's had full closure, that flame is still there. There's like still a spark of connection where somebody feels connected. So that's the scoop on closure.
That was good.
Do you have any other questions? You good?
I don't think so. Honestly.
Do you have closure on closure?
I think I do. I'll get back to you. I honestly think that your way of describing what closure is was enough of an answer, because now everyone who needs closure or wants closure can look inside themselves or look in the mirror and figure out, what do I need to get that closure? What do I need for myself?
Or work with a coach, a therapist.
What support do I need? Right.
Not everybody can do it on their own because they're not skilled, and because we always need mentors and people in our lives to support us. But you don't need an external source to get the closure that you need. You have everything right here within you to get everything that you need. And I think that's a really important
And you just might need help accessing that and tapping into it.
Exactly.
Oh, I like this. This was, I don't know. I feel like this didn't.
You feel like you have closure.
At least I do. But I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this.
I know. Everybody, just again, for any new listeners, Sarah and I don't pre-rehearse. We don't have any lines. We don't have any notes. And we have topics that we discuss and we dig into in real time with you, which is really awesome. So you're watching it unfold.
Yeah, you can clearly tell which topics I know and which topics I'm just the listener like you are. And I get to hash it out live with Aliza and hopefully ask some of the questions that you have. Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you everybody so much for listening in, checking us out. If you need help with closure or with any other dating and relationship topic, this is what we live for. This is what we do. We're deeply passionate about it. We have an amazing team and we've just recently expanded. So you can find us, marriagemindedmentor.com. You can sign up. We have free consultations. We have so many things that we offer. And this is what we talk about morning, noon, and midnight.
It is way past midnight, isn't it? 2:15 a.m.
Probably.
Side of the world.
Yes, where I live.
The dedication, Aliza, the dedication.
You got it. This is what we live for. So come find us, and we'd love to talk about it more personally, one-on-one with you. And whatever your specific closure situation is, we will help you to figure it out and wrap it up and hold you tight and give you that virtual hug that you need to move on. You need more than a hug, you need information. So we're going to give you the emotional support, the intellectual support and stimulation, and hopefully to provide the answers that you need by figuring out what's going on inside you. All right, that's a wrap.